Hi team, welcome back to the garage today. Today we're going to be working on our 1986 Camaro IROC-Z Convertible. Today's project, we're going to replace the driver's side caliper. I've noticed while I've been driving it that it's been pulling to the right when I apply the brakes. So we're going to go in there today, replace the whole caliper with a brand new unit. As I went in there and I looked at it, and the piston appears to be seized. So stick around and we'll walk you right through this project A to Z. Thanks. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've jacked up our IROC. What I did with this car, and if you're very familiar with these third generations, you know that the body is prone to a lot of flex. Even when it has a roof, this car's had its roof cut off, and even though it's been reinforced underneath by ASC, it's still a third gen, it's gonna twist. So what I've done is I've jacked the car up on both sides with jacks. That way we can try to keep the body as level as possible while I'm working on this. I don't want to cause any twisting or anything to the body while I have it up in the air. Also, this is the passenger side. That spins nice and freely for the most part. This is the driver's side. And it comes to a pretty abrupt stop, so it's dragging pretty good there. Definitely that caliper is an issue, and we're going to get it out of there right now. Okay, so I've got the car up in the air, I've got the wheel off, I've got a jack stand under the control arm for safety measure, and now I have a collection container here, because the first thing I'm going to do while this is still attached to the car, I'm going to break free the banjo bolt that holds on our brake line that's coming in. So that banjo bolt is located under here, right about here. It looks to be an 11 millimeter, and we're just going to break that free and set it off to the side. I'm not going to worry about my brake fluid because I'm going to flush the entire brake system after I'm done with this brake job, because I'm not sure how old this brake fluid is, but it's pretty nasty, and we want to get it out of there and get some fresh stuff in. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And that broke free nice and easy. If I had to guess, this is still the original caliper that it left the factory with. I could be wrong. So yeah, this fluid is pretty nasty. It actually looks like used motor oil, to be honest. So we're going to set that off to the side. Now we're going to remove our caliper pins from the caliper. So these use a hex head, or Allen key, if you will. And they're coming off pretty easy, but like I said, I've already been in here because I was looking at the caliper, trying to see if I could free up that piston and avoid changing the caliper, but that was not the case. Okay, we have all our bolts off, so caliper should come off. It is locked up, so it's fighting me a little bit. And there we go. Came right off, no issues. It did not fight me one bit, which I am absolutely grateful about. So we have a new caliper here. This is a Robustos unit. It's part of their Element 3 line. It is a brand new caliper. It's not a rebuilt one. So you're not inheriting somebody else's problem, and these do come with a lifetime warranty. I've used these on my Accord in the past with very, very good luck. So we're going to go ahead and just verify I've already done this, but you want to verify that you have the correct caliper as soon as you get it, because calipers are left-right specific, and if you get the wrong caliper, your brake bleeder is going to be on the bottom instead of the top. But I can see my brake bleeder right there through the bag, and that indicates that this is the correct caliper for this application. So we can go ahead and install it. So make sure you always check that right off the bat, that you have the right caliper before you even leave the parts store, because some things end up in the wrong box. Now the difference between this and a rebuilt one was about $12. So to me, it was obvious to go with a brand new one with the lifetime warranty versus a rebuilt one that has a 1-year warranty. I have our caliper out of the bag. It's a great looking unit. Comes with a brand new bleeder, comes with a new banjo bolt for our brake line, and it comes with 2 all new caliper pins. So you are getting 100% brand new with this unit. Very impressed, and it looks pretty much identical to the unit that I took off the car, that's sitting over here. You know, save for a couple little markings and stuff like that, you know, casting markings and stuff, but looks like it's going to fit the bill quite nicely, which I've found that to be the case with these Raybestos new units. They're pretty much identical to the unit that you're replacing on it. Okay, so I've gone ahead, I've reloaded the brake caliper with the brake pads. We're going to reuse those because they're actually not that old and they're in pretty good shape, and we're just going to reinstall it opposite of disassembly. Make sure you grab your new hardware when you're going to put this back together. Slide your pins through. Be careful, there's rubber bushings in there, so make sure you're centered before you start cranking these down. You don't want to push those bushings out or damage your brand new caliper in any way. First, go ahead, hand start these pins. Make sure you're not cross-threading anything and you got it seated correctly. I like to go by hand until I can't go anymore. There we go. Now we know we're good. Sometimes if you have any doubt, if you've started the thread correctly, turn it backwards until you hear it drop into the threads, and then you can go forward. Okay, so I'm just going to snug those up for now, and I'm going to go back and re-torque those when we're done. Alright, so we have our caliper on. I've got the pins snugged up. I'll go back later and torque those. I didn't like the way the brake hose looked, so I actually ran out and got one. The local parts store had one in stock, and I was able to actually pick it up with a coupon. So when you're putting in the new hose, first thing you want to do is be careful down here. Use a penetrating oil, especially if you're in the Northeast. There's a fitting here you're going to have to back out, and you want to make sure you don't strip that or break it. You'll have a whole other world of issues that you have to deal with. So when you put your new hose in, you have to look. There's notches on this fitting here. This fitting has a notch here that's larger, a smaller one here, and it fits into this bracket a certain way. So when you put it in there, make sure you line those up, and then it'll fit through and sit flush. And then same thing over in this bracket. It's this fitting here, it's kind of hex shaped, and so is the inside of this bracket. So when you go to put it in there, you're going to have to move it around a little bit until it all kind of drops in for you. And then once you get everything in place, you're going to take and put these clips back on. These are the retaining clips, so we're gonna go ahead and put those in there and work our way back to the caliper. Okay, so very important, you want to make sure you're not reusing your old copper crush washers. Your brake hose or your new caliper will come with a set of new crush washers. So if you're going all new with new hose and new caliper, no worries, just use your new copper crush washers. If you're reusing a caliper or reusing a hose, make sure you have accounted for those two old crush washers and that they're not stuck anywhere, because the last thing you want to do is double up on a crush washer. You could create a leak or a malfunction as well with the brake system if the hole in the banjo bolt is not aligning correctly, because the fluid goes through this bolt into the caliper. And also, when you put your crush washers on, you want to make sure there's one up against the bolt. And then I'll use the old hose here, and then you'll want to put your hose on, and then you want another new washer up on top. So bolt, washer, hose, new washer. Okay, so we have the brake line in. I had to move the camera out of the way so I could do this all. My recommendation for the best way to do this is get your hose in here and just lightly apply this clamp. Get your hose in here, lightly apply that clamp. This can only go in one way. This can go in one of 6 ways because that's hex shaped, but you don't want to twist your hose. You want to kind of keep that line as straight as possible. And then with the caliper off, connect your banjo bolt hand tight, and then get your caliper on, because you have to bend this brake line 90 degrees, and it's impossible to try to do that on a fresh brake line and get it in there and hold it in place. So the best way to do it is to start it with this off and then mount this back on. So, and then don't forget to put your brake line back on here as well. So everything's good. Now we can go ahead and we're gonna torque our hardware on our caliper back to stock spec. So we're going to start with the banjo bolt here. The torque spec I found for it is 18 to 30 foot-pounds. So I'm going to shoot for about 25. That's what I've set my torque wrench up to. Just going to find our banjo bolt here. Get it to lock in. There we go. And then we're just going to take it up to 25. And it didn't take much. Great. And then our caliper pin bolts, those are a spec of 30 to 45 foot-pounds. So I'm going to shoot for about 37. We'll go right for the middle there. Make sure everything is nice and tight there. Last thing we want is brakes coming loose on the highway or on an intersection when we need them. So again, we'll get in there. Nice. Get the bottom one. Got our bottom one. Go back to our top one, just double check it. I always like to double check it again after I get the bottom one seated, and that's good. Great, so now we've got our caliper on. Our bolts are torqued to spec. Our banjo bolt is torqued to spec. We've got both washers where we want them. Our hose looks good. Everything spins nice and freely, but don't forget, your pads are now loose. So at this point, you want to bleed your brake system, and then what you're going to want to do is, once the car is on the ground, or you can do it before you put your wheel back on, so you don't forget. You're going to want to pump your brakes 5 to 6 times and get this caliper to close up, especially if you're reusing your brake pads. So don't forget that, because the first time you go to stop, that's what you're going to get. And you're going to get a mushy pedal and no brake feel and no brake action. So make sure you do that. So I want to give you guys a quick look at what the brake fluid currently looks like. That's what's in the master cylinder. It's very, very dark. I'm not sure how old this fluid is. It could be original for all I know. So what you want to do before you bleed your brakes, you want to get all that out of there, because you want to be starting with fresh fluid. You don't want to add new fluid to this fluid and push it through the system. So use a turkey baster or a hand pump to siphon all that old fluid out of there best you can, and then add new fluid before you start bleeding your brakes. Okay, so I've gone and siphoned all the old fluid out. Now what you want to do is take some paper towels or old rags, and you want to go in there and get all that debris out of there that's sitting in the corner. No point in putting in fresh fluid and new components if you're going to reuse all that old contaminant and push it through the system. Okay, I've gone ahead, I've cleaned out the reservoir. It looks great now. And now we're ready to add fresh fluid from a sealed container. So I'm going to go ahead and top off both of our reservoirs here. You can see the difference between that old fluid that was in there and this nice clean new fluid. All right, we've got new fluid in the system. We're going to go ahead, we're going to go put our cover back on, and we're going to go and flush our brakes out. Okay, so we have our bleeder, one-man bleeder bottle hooked up to the caliper. I put fresh fluid into the reservoir, taken all the old fluid out and cleaned out the reservoir. So now we are going to push new fluid into this caliper. Now I'm going to check the color, see if we got any new fluid coming through yet. Through our hose, it does look much lighter, but I'm still seeing some air coming through. So I'm going to continue to flush the system through. Okay, we've pushed a good deal of fluid through the system now. In fact, my master cylinder is now to the minimum level. I'm still seeing some air coming through, which is a little concerning. So I'm going to add some more fluid, and we're going to keep flushing this fluid through. Okay, so it took a little bit, but I was able to get all the air out of the brake system. Nice clean fluid came through the hose into the bottle. So I am ready to put this wheel back on and call it done. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through and bleed all 4 others. I'll start in the rear and I'll work all my way up, and I'll come back and finish on this tire. But I just wanted to get fresh fluid into this and not have dirty fluid in it sitting in there while I did all that other work. Plus I want to take it for a quick test drive to make sure the pulling's gone away before I go into the flush. So